We have this man. I'm going to introduce him this way. You and I were sitting in the studio thinking, what are we going to do on Monday's program, when I opened up the letterbox and here is a CD there. We open the CD and we think, oh, The Saddler Man. And it's about John Miles Cheney. And we could see the pictures of war in the background. So we have a look at the letter, and Robert Darby has written to us, and he's written a song about an unsung war veteran until now who served in the Vietnam War. But we want to know more about this, and this is why we've brought Robert on. Robert, good morning.
Round and round through the streets of your town. Hello, how are you all?
We're wonderful. We are wonderful, Robert. Thanks for coming on the show. We're going to love this interview.
Well, I've been listening to you big me up all morning. I'm thinking, oh, gee, I better live up to these guys' expectations. I don't want to be a dud.
You know what? You know what, Robert? We've listened to the song, and it's the most beautiful song. The words. We've watched the film clip. It tugs at the heartstrings. I want to know more about who John Miles Cheney was, and we know he's a Vietnam War veteran, and what your affiliation is with him, of how you come to write the song about him.
Well, look, I got to say, I wrote this song about halfway through last year. I can hear myself echoing a little there, but if it's not going to air as a problem, I can live with it.
Yeah, no, it's not going to air.
Oh, that's okay. So I wrote the song about halfway through last year. I had to wait for someone to play on the track who was in the band where John was. So let's see. There have been so many tears along the way. I break up every time I hear the song. So when I was 17 years of age, I got invited over to John Cheney's shed for what I thought was just kind of going to be a bit of a jam session, and we played a bit of music, and then he said, would you like to join the band Whiskey Bridge?
Right.
And I said, okay, well, fair enough. No one else was beating the doors down. And so I got to know John. He had a small farm in Old Lansfield Road in Woodend. He made saddles. He worked with earth-moving equipment. And as I found out later, he had served in Vietnam.
Wow.
And as you get to know a person, they tell you more and more things about themselves. Mm-hmm. Before he went to Vietnam, he didn't play guitar or sing. He learnt to play while he was in Vietnam. There was an American soldier who played with an open A tuning, and John had always wanted to learn, so this guy taught John how to play guitar.
Fascinating story.
So John worked, he was a sapper. He did a lot of forest-type clearing and things of that nature. That's where he did get sprayed with Agent Orange, because he was out working in those things. So he came back to Australia, to a land that at that point kind of wanted to wash their hands of Vietnam vets.
Yep.
Because, like a lot of politicians and things, if it doesn't all come out smelling like roses, they tend to blame the poor people who, were in the thick of it. It took him a few years of adjustment to, kind of get himself back on track. Yep. But in spite of all of that, he was an optimist, a real kind of Aussie bloke. And so his dream was one day he would have this little country band.
Right.
And so he had to hang around with every long-haired bummer around the place, to be in the band. And so, with the diligence that he put towards everything, that's what he did with the band. He planned the band and he loved it. He wasn't expecting to become a huge superstar, and we played a lot at the Macedon Family Hotel and a lot of those things. And along the way, I got to know him more and more.
It's an amazing story, Robert. Do you know whether he was ever at Puckapunyal here in Seymour? Did he do any training? Was he stationed at Puckapunyal? Did he ever mention it?
Yeah. Do you know, I don't know that, but I looked him up again this morning. It turns out he was born in Swan Hill, so I'm not sure whether he was at Puckapunyal. I don't know that.
Yep.
But we sure as hell know that he went to Vietnam. That's for sure.
That's for sure.
And I've been up at when I grew up as a teenager. A mate of mine's parents owned the Two Barack Hotel.
Wow.
Yeah. So as a 15, 16-year-old, I used to drag my guitar there. And one time I came into the lounge and decided to play a few songs, and my mate's father looked at me like, "Oh God, no, please," which is fair enough.
Robert, this is what our show's all about. The streets of your town. It's about finding the characters, the larrikins, the unsung heroes that have walked the streets of our town. And now you're telling me that you're out at the Two Barack Hotel strumming away.
Yeah, well. So, his old man was like, he was sort of like that northern accent, like, yeah, right, lad.
Yeah.
Hey up. He was the kind of guy, people would come in and say, good morning. He'd go, what's so blooming good about it? So I managed to kind of win him over. And through that, they had recommended to someone at Puckapunyal my services. So I played at the officers' mess there in Tobruk Barracks. Which was kind of cool as a 16-year-old. So I'm relatively familiar with the terrain. Go and ask me something. Keep going.
Good morning, Robert. It's Geoff here. I was going to ask you.
G'day, Geoff.
How are you? Up on YouTube, you did an interview with Pat Panetta on Overnight, just on the weekend. Yes. So for all our listeners, that's up, which explains a lot about what you're saying about John Miles Cheney. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to get a little bit onto your own stuff. Now, you have your own podcast called the Soapbox Darby podcast.
Oh, yeah, that's not for everybody. It's not for everybody.
No,
but
it does get a bit colourful. But I was just a couple of you've got lots of songs. I can't list them all, but a couple that I really did resonate with and like was "Rivers Ran Into the Sea." Looking Over My Shoulder, I like. But I wanted to ask you about Under the Nearest Bus. It seemed to me that it was like a relationship gone bad. Would that be correct?
Oh, I think you could probably draw that analogy, yes. Yes, I think you could probably draw that analogy.
It's a terrific song, Under the Nearest. You threw me under the nearest bus. I like the title, I love the song.
Yes. Hey, well, thank you very much. With a lot of those songs, I don't always go to the level of promotion like I have with the Saddler Man. The thing with the Saddler Man is this could potentially be, for me, a one-in-a-lifetime song.
It is.
It definitely is.
It is, Robert. This song, I believe, will take off. I really do.
So. Well, look, I hope so. I hope so, because it would be wonderful after 60 years of knocking my pins out, trying to make some sort of headway. But it is just one of those. It's one of those songs where you just, look, I'm telling a story from a perspective, but I think I said that the other night on the other interview. It's a bit like when Keith Richards, when he's written a lot of songs, sometimes feels that he's a bit of a conduit. Yep. Somehow the song's out there in the thing and it channels through you. Now, I don't generally believe in all that New Age rubbish, but this, I don't know, and the other thing about this song too, there's that old saying in country music that country music just has three chords and the truth. And essentially that song only has three chords and it's the truth. And I sort of thought, wow, I don't know if I'll ever be able to write anything kind of as good as that again. I don't know.
Robert, how long did it actually take you to pen that song? How long did you spend? Weeks, months over it, or did it come pretty quick?
Okay. Well, here's the thing. After John passed away, it was always in my mind. I've somehow got to write a song about him, but the time just wasn't ready.
Yep.
And whatever it was last year, I don't know what it was. The first bits of it just came to me, and I thought, okay, this is time to do this. And when I look at the song, because John's been gone 14 years, and I think now at nearly 60 years of age, I would have needed that kind of sense of maturity to somehow capture the song, because the danger with a song like that is that it can end up being one of those songs where it sort of comes out like, good old Cheney was a fantastic fella. And that's not that there's anything wrong with those sort of songs, but for some reason the song had to, it tells the story of me heading to the shed, and then just slowly but surely it just keeps revealing itself. And what I had hoped for is that it had this reverence for this man who was a regular knockabout kind of man, and it's just a narrative, and for some reason it worked. I just think the song really needed to be done, and I'm really glad that I met him and had the opportunity to do that, because even though Gene's been gone for 14 years, the guy's still doing me a good turn.
That is so true, Robert. Do you remember that moment in time when you heard the news that your friend John had passed away?
Yeah.
Do you remember where you were and what was happening?
Yeah.
Did you as mates know that like John's time was coming, or was it sudden?
Yes.
You knew?
No, we knew. See, now, I was only in the band for perhaps a year. A lot of people went through the band, but we would always keep in touch, like sometimes there'd be huge gaps. Plus, my mate, who was also in the band, even though we weren't in the band at the same time, but my mate who plays bass and that, we were in high school together, and we were in a ton of other bands together. So we were aware that John was ill. I don't know if I could get the exact timeline. I think probably we were aware of it for, I'm guessing, a year, 18 months, something along those lines. He was being treated for various cancers. We knew the time was there. And so in the song, when I say the last time I saw Gene alive with the tubes, his inside, was in the Clayton hospital. He'd been at a hospital in Melbourne somewhere the week before, and I wanted to come and visit him, but I had a really filthy kind of cold flu, and I said, "Oh, look, I'm not going to come and see you while I'm sick." They transferred him up to the Clayton Hospital, and that was the last time I saw him. And I wandered in, and Jenny, his wife, was there, and that was the first time I ever met Jenny, and that was really sweet, because John had a lot of heartbreak, and that's the first time I met Jenny, but I knew of her, and at some point she said, "Look, I'll leave you fellas alone to talk." And he said to me, he said, "Rob, I finally found love. She rescued, she saved me, she was there for me, and all this kind of thing." And it was so bittersweet.
Yeah.
One of the songs I played at his funeral, there were 3 songs I played at his funeral. It was One Day at a Time, I Believe in You, and the song also by the same guy, You're My Best Friend.
You're talking Don Williams, are you?
Don Williams, yes.
Yep.
And so in the last verse where I sang, and the priest really did say that to me, "Are you sure you can be able to do this?" And it was kind of profound in a way, because this is the first day that priest was back on duty, because his daughter was killed in a horrific car accident.
Wow.
A few months prior, and it had knocked him off his socks, and he'd had to take leave. And so this was the first time back for him, and here he is conducting this funeral. And I knew of his story, and I could understand why he was saying, basically, "Listen, I don't want you to fall apart while you're doing this stuff." So I get into the last verse and a half of You're My Best Friend, and that's where I say I felt him standing by my side. Now, again, I don't believe in all the esoteric thing, but it was like he was sort of there, and it was a case of, "Now listen, lad, listen, you fluffy-faced boy. You got one shot at this, don't mess it up." And so as I went into the last bit of the song, Jenny, his wife, I stared directly at her and sang it, because I was sort of like a proxy for John being there. It's like, this is the song, and he adored you, Jenny. He loved you. So I thought, I'm going to directly stare at her, and hopefully it won't freak her out, which it didn't. But it was so profound. So it took me another 14 years, but all of that stuff just was always whirling around in my head, and from time to time I'd think about him, and there was always a backlog of songs that I was got to get around to do, and it would come back to mind, and I'd think, yeah, you know, I've got to do that song. So I based the song in John's guitar tuning, because he shared that tuning with me. He used to keep that as a very closely guarded secret. He didn't tell it. It's open A. I'm not telling you just what kind of open A, because it's a little bit different from the Keith Richards open G tuning. But one day he said to me, do you want to learn the trick of my tuning? And of course, being the opportunistic vulture that I am, I said, oh, yes, please. And again, I'm so glad I did. Because there is so much of John Miles Cheney in that song, and it comes down to my friend Robert Rolfink, who played bass and the lead guitar. And now Rob lives on the other side of Melbourne somewhere, and he's a financial advisor person and all this. Busy as the day is long.
Yep.
And so over the last 6 months, we've had so many times where he's been ready to come and then it hasn't happened. So he finally got here. And I held off and held off and held off because I said, no, Robert's got to play on this song, because Robert was a member of Whiskey Bridge. And so there was a lot of magic that needed to kind of happen for the song to sit right and be right.
I was going to ask you, Robert, on a personal note, you've done a lot of work with your son Roy, and
I have my son, yes.
And Roy has a band called the Roy Darby Trio.
He does indeed, and he plays around Melbourne. He'll be at the Le Monde Hotel this weekend on Saturday, and he played the Drunken Poet last Saturday. I haven't heard from him, so he's probably out partying on or something. But you know that perfect thing where you think to yourself, wouldn't it be good if my son followed in my footsteps?
He did.
My mum who's 93. And myself, she always hated pushy stage parents, and I kind of feel that way too. So he was never lent on like, you better learn music, boy. He was born with this. It's scary actually. He was born with this ability, and you can sing a note to him, or he can hear anything. He'll tell you what key it's in. He's got perfect pitch in the ears.
Wow.
When he was a 7-year-old kid, we were driving around the car and was listening to songs. He said, oh, that's in A, and that's in C, and that's in this. And I'm looking at him like, you know what, you're full of it. So I bring him home, and I said, yeah, all right, we'll find out. And I put on a bunch of CDs where obviously I knew what keys they were in, and he just went, yeah, that's in B flat, and I went, this is scary. Because people said to me, oh, well, I can see where he gets the talent. And I'm sort of like, yeah, this kid has talents that I don't have. So, he'd look, and so, you could go through the YouTube, Robert Darby original songs on YouTube. You'll see him growing up, and he takes part in quite a few songs. Now, you'd be amazed at how much of the arranging and instrumentation this kid played. And I'm thinking, this kid's a superstar. I mean, so I better get in on the action and look after him, because I want to be put in the good nursing home. and someone's got to make something of himself in the family, because I said, oh, great, just what we need, another long-haired bum.
Also, too, Robert, I believe that you, during your career, you've been involved in radio yourself. Yeah,
well, that's how I met Pat Panetta all those years ago. We were at a little station in the western suburbs called 3WRB, which sadly is not there anymore.
Okay,
yep.
So, Pat and I go ways back, and he was a young guy, and I straight away, I saw Pat's potential. Others, he's just one of the kids, but no, I saw Pat, and I was like, no, you're going to do something. And the good thing with Pat, too, that I really like about him is you meet a lot of people kind of in show business who can fake being humble.
Yep.
But Pat is genuinely humble. He has this wonderful thing where, like, he's on the ball and he knows what's going on, but he has that, I don't know what you'd call it, that sort of delightful sense of, not goofy, but that's not the right word, but he's just a natural at what he does. He's different to me because he's not a lunatic like I am. but he is natural, and so it was wonderful when I did call him because I felt a bit kind of thing like, hey, give me some publicity. But what I said was, look, I'll send you a link to the song. No pressure. I mean, if you don't feel it and you think no way, then hey, no hard feelings. So I didn't expect, that it would necessarily work. Yeah, and he heard it and he just got back and said, oh, no, look, I love it. No, I'm going to get you to do 15 minutes, Australia-wide overnight. And I thought to myself, see, kind of good karma in a way. You spend a lifetime circling through other people's lives.
Yep.
And I guess the more genuine and whatever, it's amazing at some point that someone turns around and pays the favour back, or sometimes pays it forward. Sometimes in life that's what we do. We might have, like when we're younger, and you might meet a John Miles Cheney who gives you some good guidance, and then maybe 20, 30 years down the track you pay it forward to someone else. Hopefully, the world needs more of that because, we're all in a bit of a mess at the moment.
Yeah, Robert. And just talking about John Miles Cheney, because I want to play this song in a moment as we wind up the interview. In your own words, and I will use this analogy, John's looking down at you at the moment. What would he say to you today?
I was asked that question. I think he would be very proud. I think he would be happy to know that his story has been told and it will go on and hopefully touch other people. And then at the other hand, he'll be self-effacing and say, that's a lot of fuss over me,
Humble again.
Yeah, because he was. And he reminded me a lot of my father. My father was a D-Day soldier. He went up the beach in Normandy.
Yep.
And had 5.5 or so years of his youth robbed. And my father said, it was bloody awful and war sucks and all that. He said, but, we had to do it. Hitler was, breathing down our necks. And so he and John had a commonality in the fact that my father, if he saw young people giving something a go, he'd be the first one to talk them up and do everything he could to help them. And that also was John Miles Cheney. Now, he came back from Vietnam, and for a while he was hard and mean. But over a lifetime, that's something I noticed about John Cheney. If he saw a young person giving something a go, he would not say bad about that person, and he would do what he could to help. He was one of those old-fashioned Aussies. If he drove past someone, their car was broken down, wherever it was, John was always he'd stop and see if they needed help. We're living in a world now where I guess in the big cities we're getting, packed in like sardines, and so unfortunately we're sometimes losing touch, and a lot of people go, well, I don't want to get involved. Yeah,
exactly, Robert. Exactly.
Not that we should bag out the world, because there are a lot of good people out there, and if it wasn't for the good people in the world would really suck. I mean, if you think it's bad now, you should see what it would be like if no one was bothered to help anyone.
Yeah, that's right, Robert. And you know what? What we want to do right now is we want the listeners to have a listen to this beautiful song as we wind up our little chat with you. We just want to thank you for coming on today, the streets of your town, and telling everybody about John Miles Cheney, of course, the Saddler Man, the unsung war veteran of the Vietnam War, and his life and age and orange, which is mentioned in the song. Where do our listeners find your music?
Okay, well, at the moment, you go to Robert Darby Original Songs on YouTube. Just about all those songs there you can also get on the streaming platform. I'm just waiting for the two songs, which is The Saddler Man and The Little Girl from Tennessee. I'm waiting for CD Baby to send back the email saying, hey, your stuff's been released.
Yeah.
But which is probably silly in my case. I should have waited for it actually before going out on a publicity thing. But what happened was I just put it out small and thought I could keep it quiet, and then it sort of exploded, and I thought, oh, well, you better. But for free, you can hear it for free on Robert Darby Original Songs, The Saddler Man. And I guess if you got a little time, have a listen to The Little Girl from Tennessee, because that actually is a tribute to Dolly Parton.
Right, but so we'll also play that one throughout the next couple of weeks as well. So, Robert, we're going to have to leave it there and play your song. But
thank you, Robert.
Can we thank you very much for coming on and having a light-hearted, fun chat, in-depth chat, emotional chat, chats about every mood in society that can go on. It was so good to talk to you today.
Yes, and Robert. It was good to talk to you, and I'll allow you to thank me.
Yep. Okay, Robert, we'll chat to you soon, mate. Thank you very much for sending the C3.
Thanks, Robert.
Thank you. Thanks.
There you go, Geoff. How's that? That was great. But we have to top it off now by playing the song.
He's a magnificent gentleman. Fantastic. Very thorough what he just right through. And wait to hear this song, which the listeners will hear now.
Yep. From the moment I put this on, within 10 seconds, I thought we've got a wham, bam, bingo, big hit on our hands here. And let's hope that if this does go to number one, we were the first community radio station to pick it up and play it.
There you go. Let's hope so.
Yeah, but don't you do a Molly Meldrum and say, do yourself a favour. Let's have a listen right now. Beautiful song. Thanks for the call, Robert. In tribute to John Miles Cheney, here's The Saddler Man.
On Borden Road, headed for his shed, handbrake turns and my foot of lead. In the days when I was 17, my head filled with rock star dreams, on the way to make some music with the Saddler Man. Old Lansfield Road inside Wood End was the farm of my saddler friend. Fine were the saddles that he made, but as a jack he knew all the trades. His words of wisdom were foundations that he laid. Worked every hour of the day, all through the night we'd sing and play. His guitar was tuned to open A. He learned to play it while he was away, back when they called him up and sent him to Vietnam. He lost $1 million with the turn of the key. His prized possession, always loyalty. His inner war fought his sanity. For many years he was hard and mean, due to the nation that once shunned the Saddler Man. We stored our beers in the old shed fridge, played in the band that he named Whiskey Bridge, packed his horse float with the old PA. So many journeys down the Calder Highway made real the dreams and hopes of the Saddler Man. Last time that I saw Gene alive, all the tubes attached to his insides, he would have given everything he owned for one more journey traveled down that road. Then Agent Orange claimed the life of the Saddler Man. teacher asked me, will you be okay? He said it's hard to sing when the emotions are strong. But I sang my tributes to my old friend John. I felt him standing there right by my side as I stared into his widow's eyes. He said, tell my bride I love her, say goodbye from the Saddler Man.
.9 Seymour FM. In a sign of respect, a few seconds silence after the song.
What a magnificent song.
I don't know what to say.
If that's not number one, that's all I can say. That is a magnificent song, Robert Darby.
You know what? I was always taught in radio is theatre of mind.
Mm.
That song is theatre of mind.
Yes.
The way that Robert has written those words, you paint the picture. You can play the movie in your mind. The way he has put that is just magnificent.
Truly magnificent song, and I love the melodies, the piano and in the background, sometimes a little bit of guitar. It's just got everything. It's a fantastic effort from Robert Darby, and let's hope it just takes off. It should. It deserves to.
It does. And Robert, I would be contacting the Vietnam veterans here in Seymour, the walk. Hank Cremus is well up on this. We'll pass this CD on to him. He's a Vietnam vet himself. Who knows? He might know more about this man, John Miles Cheney. Wouldn't it be amazing if Hank said that I actually served with him in Vietnam? We don't know. We'll find out. But hats off to you, Robert. That is just an all-time fantastic song. It's a classic. That will stand the test of time. In 100 years, that song will still be around to teach the generations that are still to come of what we endured back then. Or we didn't endure it, Geoff. Sadly for poor John Miles Cheney, he did, Vietnam War.
You actually mentioned, Damian, about similar Red Gum, the song.
Yep, I was only 19 is another one. And, of course, Peter Allen's grandfather, the Tenterfield Saddler, the late George Woolnough, the Tenterfield Saddler. It's not about the Vietnam War, but his grandfather went to war, came home and with serious depression, couldn't cope with the world, and the way the late Peter Allen wrote that song about his grandfather in Tenterfield, tells stories of what the Vietnam vets, all war veterans, went through. 20 to 12. This show has been fantastic.
Been buzzing.
You know what they'd say, and I'm pretty sure right now that Robert Darby would say this: time flies when you're having fun.
Exactly.
Let's do a break. We'll be back in a moment.
We all have